The fire is low tonight, and I need you to listen carefully. There is a market in the forest that only opens at midnight. You cannot find it by looking. It finds you. There are fires burning between the stalls, but those fires cast no shadows. Chai! Think about that. Fire with no shadow, because the things standing near them are not alive. A man is moving through those stalls right now, reaching for something on a dark cloth, something that has no name in the living world. And the merchant, a darkness with hands, is reaching back toward him, not to give, to take. Something from deep inside his chest, something he cannot see leaving, something he will not miss until it is far, far too late. His name is Obichina, and this is the last good night of his life.
Ah, my people, pull your mat closer to this fire. Come, sit down properly. I have been waiting for you. My name is Adunni, and this fire of mine, it has been burning since the old days. Tonight, I want to tell you something. The Igbo people of the ancient lands, they used to say, the sweetest fruit in the forest is always growing closest to the most dangerous root. You hear that? Sweetest fruit, most dangerous root. Tonight's story is about a market where everything is for sale. Power, wealth, land, long life, the downfall of your enemies, everything. But here is the thing, my people. Nobody at that market will ever tell you the price. Not when you are buying. Not when you are leaving. Only later, much later, when you look at the people you love most in this world, will you understand what you paid. This story was passed from mouth to ear for generations, because the ones who learned it firsthand could not always pass it on themselves. So stay with me tonight. Stay until the final word, because this story carries a secret, and that secret does not reveal itself until the very last moment. My Fireside family, if this fire is your home, subscribe now. Press that button and make this your permanent seat. Every week, I am here waiting with a new story. Now, let me tell you about Obichina.
Obichina was not a bad man. I beg, let me say that clearly. He was not wicked. He was not lazy. He woke before the sun. He farmed until his back bent like an old palm tree in the rain. He had a compound, small but clean. He had a wife, Adaora, whose patience was deeper than any well in the village. A woman whose smile could make a tired man forget his tiredness completely. He had everything a man needs. But Obichina had a sickness that many men carry without knowing they carry it. He wanted more. Not because he was starving, no. Because Chukwemeke, his oldest friend, his brother since childhood, had somehow, quietly, without any explanation anybody could follow, become wealthy. New cattle, chai, the finest cattle. New land on the eastern side where the soil was rich and dark like midnight. New respect in the village square. Men who used to walk past Chukwemeke now stopped to greet him first. Obichina watched all of this, and something inside him began to shift. He pressed Chukwemeke one evening when the two of them were alone near the Iroko tree at the edge of the compound. "Brother," Obichina said quietly, "talk to me. Where is all this coming from?" Chukwemeke was quiet for a long time. Too long. "Some things," he said finally, "a man should not share." "We are brothers," Obichina said. Another long silence. Then Chukwemeke leaned close. His voice dropped so low that the night itself had to strain to hear it. He whispered about a place in the forest, a clearing you cannot find by walking towards it, a market that only appears at midnight, where things are available that no living trader has ever stocked. "I went once," Chukwemeke said. His eyes were strange, flat, like a man describing a dream that still frightens him in daylight. "Only once, and I will never go again." "Why?" Obichina asked. Chukwemeke stood up. The conversation was over. "Forget I said anything," he said. "Forget all of it." And he walked away. But Obichina could not forget. Chai, how could he forget? Over the days that followed, he watched Chukwemeke's new cattle grazing. He watched Elder Mazi Okinwa command respect in the village square, respect Obichina had always quietly hungered for. He watched other men's farms expanding, while his stayed the same size it had always been. He lay awake beside Adaora at night, staring at the ceiling of their modest home, listening to her breathe. She was content. She had always been content. But Obichina was burning. By the 7th night, his decision was already made. He waited until Adaora was deeply asleep, her breathing slow and even and peaceful. He rose from his sleeping mat without making a sound. He wrapped his cloth around his shoulders and he walked to the door of his compound and looked out into the forest ahead of him. Dark, dense, waiting. He took one step forward, then another. The village behind him went silent in a way that felt less like quiet and more like holding its breath.
The forest swallowed him. That is the only way to describe it. One moment, he was at the edge of the tree line, dry ground under his feet, moonlight overhead. The next moment, the trees were everywhere, above him, around him, so thick that the moonlight came through only in thin, pale slivers. He walked for what felt like too long. He was beginning to think Chukwemeka had said nothing, that he had imagined the whole thing, when he smelled it. Not decay, not earth, something older than both, something that had no name in any language spoken of the living. And then he saw the light. Fires. Many fires, burning between rows of market stalls in a wide forest clearing. He stopped at the edge. His legs did not want to carry him forward. Every part of him that knew the difference between the living world and the other world was screaming at him to turn back. But his hunger was louder than his fear. He walked in. Chai, my people, let me tell you what Obichina saw. The fires were burning bright, real fire, real heat, but they cast no shadows. Everything the fire touched existed in pure, flat light. No shadow behind a stall, no shadow under a pot, no shadow beneath a hand. Because shadows require something solid to block the light. And the things moving through this market were not fully solid. Figures moved between the stalls, men and women, or the shapes of men and women. But their feet made no sound on the earth. Their faces he could not hold in his vision. Every time he tried to look directly at one, it seemed to slide out of focus, like trying to catch water in a cupped hand. He recognized some of them. A woman from the northern end of the village who had grown strangely wealthy 2 seasons ago. A man who now owned land nobody could explain. They were all here, moving through the stalls in their own private hunger. Nobody spoke above a whisper. Nobody made eye contact. Everyone moved as if they were alone in that clearing. Obichina moved deeper in. The stalls were covered in dark cloth, and the things displayed on them. Abeg, there are no words for what was on those cloths. He did not see gold or cowrie shells or fine fabric. He saw shapes, impressions, things that his eyes registered but his mind could not name. Power had a shape here, wealth had a color, long life sat in a small container that seemed to breathe. He walked slowly past each stall until one stopped him. He did not choose it, it chose him. He was standing in front of a darkness that had hands. That is what the merchant was. A darkness standing behind a cloth with hands that reached forward from shadow. And on the cloth in front of Obichina was everything he had ever wanted. Wealth, land, status in his village, respect, the kind of life where men greet you first in the square. He reached for it. The merchant's hands reached towards him at the same moment, not towards his hands, towards his chest. Not touching, just reaching, like a man reaching towards a pot to feel its warmth from a distance. Obichina felt a warmth, a brief heaviness deep inside his chest, like a sleeping thing turning over. Then it passed. Just like that, gone. He did not think about it. He had what he came for. He could feel it settling inside him like a seed going into dark soil. Already working, already changing things. He turned and walked back through the market, through the soundless figures, through the shadowless fires, past the edge of the clearing, into the dark trees. When he looked back, the clearing was empty. Just forest, just moonlight on leaves, like nothing had ever been there. He walked home through the quiet night, feeling like the most fortunate man alive, feeling like his whole life was about to begin. He did not know that something was already missing from his chest. He could not feel the absence. Not yet.
3 market days after that night in the forest, Obichina's life began to change. A man from a distant village arrived, asking about land on the western edge, land that Obichina happened to have a loose claim on. They struck an arrangement that left Obichina with more cowries than he had seen in years. The week after that, his yam harvest came in large, unusually large. The week after that, the village began to notice him differently. Men who had nodded at him now stopped to speak. Mazi Okenwa the elder, who had never paid Obichina much attention, called him by name in the village square and asked his opinion on a matter. Obichina's chest swelled. This was everything he had wanted. But, my people, strange things were beginning to happen. Small things, easy to explain away. Adaora, his wife, whose face had always carried its years lightly, began to look tired. Not sick, not in pain, just tired, in a deep way, like a fire that has been burning longer than it should. Fine lines appeared at the corners of the eyes that had not been there before. She moved a little slower in the mornings. Obichina noticed and told himself it was the season, the harmattan dryness, the increased work of their growing household. He believed himself because he wanted to. Then word came about Chukwuemeka. He had been found one morning unable to rise from his sleeping mat. Not sick, no fever, no wound, just emptied, like something had been quietly draining out of him for months and had finally drained enough to leave him hollow. The village healers came. They burned their herbs and said their prayers. They gave names to what they saw: spiritual attack, enemy witchcraft, the jealousy of rivals. Nobody connected it to the forest. Nobody connected it to a market. A third man, someone Obichina had seen moving through those shadowless stalls, began forgetting things. Conversations he had just finished, names of people he had known for years. He would stop in the middle of his sentence and stand there, mouth open, like a man who reached for something and found the shelf empty. The village clocked its tongue and called it age catching up. Obichina himself noticed that he tired more easily these days. A morning of farming that used to leave him pleasantly worn now left him genuinely exhausted. He slept deeply, like a man falling into dark water. But he woke each morning feeling as if he had not slept at all. He told himself it was the increased responsibility, the new land, the new expectations. A man rising in his village carries more weight. That was all it was. My Fireside people, the night is getting heavy now.
The fire is burning at its hottest. Before I tell you what Obichina finally learned, throw some wood on my fire. Press that subscribe button right now and let me know you are still awake with me tonight. If you are already family, tell your people, bring them to this fire, because what is coming next, chai, it will change how you see everything. Now, where were we? Mazi Okenwa, the elder. He had been watching Obichina's sudden rise with quiet eyes. He said nothing. He asked nothing. But in the village square, when Obichina passed, the old man's gaze would follow him, not with admiration, not with suspicion exactly, with something colder, recognition. One evening, Obichina came home to find Adaora sitting outside their compound, watching the last of the daylight leave the sky. She turned when she heard him, and she smiled. That smile, her beauty could still make him stop walking. But when he sat beside her and she reached for his hand, he looked down at her hand in his, and he saw how thin it had become. Her fingers, her wrist, like something was slowly drawing the life out of her. He told himself it was nothing, but his hands were cold as he held hers, and somewhere deep in his chest, in the exact place where he had felt that brief warmth in the market, something whispered. Chukwuemeka sent for him. The message came through a young relative, urgent, come now. Obichina found his old friend lying on his sleeping mat, and what he saw made him stop in the doorway. Chukwuemeka had aged. Not the way men age slowly over years. He had aged the way a fire ages a piece of wood, fast and from the inside. The man on that mat looked 20 years older than the man Obichina had spoken with a season ago. His skin hung differently. His eyes sat deeper. Brother, Obichina said quietly. He could not find more words than that. Sit down, Chukwuemeka said. His voice was still his voice at least. "And listen to me, because I am going to tell you everything I should have told you the night by the iroko tree." Obichina sat. "The market takes years," Chukwuemeka said. "That is the currency. Not cowries, not gold, not cattle. Years. Years of the buyer's own life, taken quietly, invisibly at the moment of purchase. The merchant reaches towards your chest and takes from you, and you feel almost nothing, and you walk away, and your life begins to change, and you tell yourself you are fortunate." He stopped, coughed. "But you are not fortunate. You are already paying. Every good thing that comes into your life from the market, you are buying it with time you cannot see leaving you." Obichina's mouth was dry. "How many?" he asked. "How many years does it take?" "It depends on what you buy," Chukwuemeka said, "and it is never announced. You never know the price until you begin to feel it." He turned his head towards the ceiling. "But that is not the worst part," he said. "The worst part is that I went back." Silence. "I could feel myself running out. I could feel the years draining. So I went back to the market. I thought, I will buy more years. I will purchase more time for myself." And Obichina's voice was barely sound. "The currency for buying years of life is not your own life. It is someone you love. The market takes their years instead. Their time flows into you."
The room felt like it had no air in it. "My brother," Chukwuemeka whispered. "My eldest brother. He was strong. He was healthy. 3 days after my second visit to that market." He did not finish. He did not need to. Obichina stood up slowly. He was thinking about Adaora's thin hands. He was thinking about her deepening tiredness. He was thinking about the warmth he had felt in his chest at that market stall, the brief heaviness, the thing that passed so quickly. He was thinking about what the merchant had been reaching for. Not his hands, his chest. He ran. He ran through the village, past the evening fires of other compounds, past the sound of children and cooking and the ordinary living world. He burst through the entrance of his own compound. Adaora was sitting near the fire. She looked up at him and she smiled. Chai, that smile, that same smile that had always been able to stop him mid-step. But now he saw it differently. He saw how much older she looked than she should. He saw the years being drawn quietly from her face. He saw his own greed written into every line the market had carved into her. He stood in the middle of his prosperous compound. New land, new cattle, new respect in the village, all of it surrounding him. All of it meaning nothing. Nothing. Nothing at all. He went back to the forest at midnight. He could not stay away. He needed to know. He stood in the trees and waited until the clearing appeared. Those shadowless fires, those dark stalls, those figures moving in their private hunger. He walked in. He found the merchant's stall, the darkness with hands. "What did you take from me?" Obichina demanded. His voice shook, but he kept it above a whisper. "How many years? From whom?" The merchant did not speak. It simply showed him, not in words, not in language, a vision, a truth, held in front of him without mercy, the way you hold a lamp up to something you need a man to see clearly. He saw the full count of what had been taken from him silently. Years that would have been his, gone. He saw Adaora. He saw her years flowing away from her like water leaving a cracked pot. Into the market's possession, into the payment for what he had purchased. She did not know. She had never walked to that forest, never stood at that stall, never reached for anything. She was paying a price she had never agreed to for a purchase she had never made. Because of him, because of his hunger. He saw Chukwemeke's clock running low, almost empty, the last grains of sand rushing toward the bottom. He saw the other villagers he had recognized that midnight, each of them quietly hollowing out season by season, paying debts they could not see. He understood now what the ghost market was. Not a gift, not an opportunity, a trap. The most patient trap in the world, one that lets you believe you have won until the cost has already been paid beyond any recovery. "Give them back," Obichina said. The merchant did not move.
Give them back. The darkness with hands simply waited. There were no returns at this market. What was purchased was purchased. What was taken was taken. The market did not do mercy. Obichina walked out of the forest as the first grey light of dawn began to thin the darkness between the trees. He walked past his expanded farm, past his new cattle beginning to stir in the early morning, past every visible sign of the life he had bought. He sat down beside Adaora, outside their compound. She was already awake. She woke early these days. She looked at his face, his hollow eyes, his broken expression, and she touched his cheek gently. "Why do you look that way?" she asked. He could not answer her. What could he say? "I spent your years. I did not know what I was paying, but that is no excuse. You are older than you should be because of me. I cannot undo it. I cannot give them back." He said nothing. He took her thin hand in both of his, and he held it. The way a man holds something precious that he knows he is already in the process of losing. He spent the rest of his days that way, sitting beside Adaora, watching the cost of his desperation play out slowly in her face, year by year, season by season, knowing he put it there, knowing it could not be undone, knowing that his own clock was also running, silently, invisibly, toward its end.
My people, the ghost market is still there. It has always been there, patient as a spider at the center of its web, waiting for the next desperate heart to find the path at midnight. What the darkness sells is always real. The wealth comes, the power comes, the respect comes. It is only the price tag that is hidden. So let me ask you something tonight before you leave this fire. What have you been so desperate for that you stopped asking what it would truly cost you to get it? Let that breathe. My Fireside family, thank you for sitting with me at this fire tonight. If this story moved something in you, like, comment, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe so you never miss a night at this fire.